Good morning, YouTubers. Thank you for coming to visit with me again as we take a look at another one of my collectible children's books. The type of books that I have are more specifically called 3D tiny books. And there were about 12 or maybe 13 of these made in the late 60s and the early 70s. Probably pretty hard to see the list, but oh my goodness, that's probably not going to, well, no matter. They're pretty much the standard books that you would expect: Goldilocks and Cinderella, Jack and the Beanstalk, Snow White, things like that. So, some of my other YouTubes, we've talked about a few of those. So I hope you enjoy taking a look at Jack and the Beanstalk today. And of course, it has the lovely, I call it the lenticular. I bet there's a different name. But it's the 3D layered viewer that is glued to the covers of these books. And 9 times out of 10, if I ever do find these books at a reseller or a thrift store, these are long gone by some child who I feel sure wanted to keep it. Can't blame him there. And this one, I don't know if this will do any good for you to try to look, but when you look closely at these, you can see every layer of the image. It's, for instance, the chicken appears to be the closest, and then the flower, and then there's Jack kind of behind the chicken. That's really kind of getting close. Anyhow, it's a 3D image, and it's really cool, and it's kind of a vinyl-y image. And back then, when I was little, I thought it was magic. Okay, so we will jump right into the story. Don't you love Jack's cow? You're really cute. All of these little puppets are cute. But there's Jack's cow, and then it's Jack. And I'm going to assume that this is the man with the magic beans. Okay, so the story starts by telling us that Jack and his mother were very poor. One day, there was not even a crust of bread to eat. Jack's mother said, "Jack, take our cow to the village and sell her for as much money as possible, because after this, there's nothing left to sell." So Jack took the cow and he started out. On the way, Jack met a man who showed him some beautiful beans. "These are magic beans. I'll trade them for your cow." Jack wanted those beans very much, so he agreed to trade his cow for them. And it's really difficult to see, but it almost looks like they're either marbles, or I tried to look one time, they might be, pardon my old lady viewer here, I think they almost look like jelly beans. Anyhow, Jack was pretty convinced they were magic. I like these pages too because they're hardboard pages. I like that. So, okay, Jack got the beans. And when Jack returned home, he showed his mother what he had gotten for the cow. "You silly boy! Is that all you got in return for our precious cow? Now what will we eat?" But mother, they're magic beans. Jack, he wanted to explain, but his mother was angry, and she had already thrown the beans out the window. Jack was by then very hungry, but there was nothing to eat, so he went to bed and he fell fast asleep. And for all of you that know the story, you can imagine what comes next. The next morning, Jack woke up and looked out the window. To his surprise, the beans had grown into a sturdy beanstalk that reached up to the sky. Jack hurried outside and he began to climb that beanstalk. Finally, after climbing a long, long way, Jack reached to the top of the beanstalk. I'm going to see if we can't get closer so you can see that big, big beanstalk. All the flowers. That beanstalk is as big as him. Looks like a big tree that just grew overnight there in his yard. You see his house? How tiny his house looks way down in that corner. Way down there. So that's a lot of climbing. And I remember not knowing what to expect when he got to the top. Couldn't imagine. But I do remember not imagining this. This was sort of a surprise to me. Okay. He came to a strange place and he saw a castle in the distance. Jack went to the castle and he knocked on the door. A woman appeared. "Please give me something to eat," pleaded Jack. "Don't be silly. This is the house of a giant. He'd be more likely to eat you." But poor Jack looked so hungry and tired that the woman took pity on him and let him in. So this must be the house of the giant. And look at the door. Look at the big, I guess that's the handle door knocker. I wonder how he fits in that door if he's a giant. Maybe that's just her door. Maybe I shouldn't ask so many questions. Maybe I need another sip of coffee. Excuse me. Thank you. I don't want to skip a page. That was right? Yes, okay. So we get our first look at the giant. Goodness. There's the nice lady that brought Jack in for a bite to eat. And there is this kind of creepy, scary giant. And look at Jack. Way over. Whoops. Goodness, camera. Way over here. Okay. We'll get back to the book. Maybe if I quit trying to be so fancy. Let us read the book. That night the giant returned home. Fee, fi, fo, fum. "I smell the blood of an Englishman," roared the giant. But the giant's wife answered, "Oh, that's just the rabbit I'm roasting for your supper." After eating, the giant asked his wife to bring his bag of golden coins, his hen that laid the golden eggs, and his golden harp. Jack peeked out of his hiding place, and he saw that these treasures were the very ones that had been stolen from his father long ago. When the giant fell asleep, Jack crept out, took the bag of gold, and he ran back home. You see all this gold? Look at all that gold. And there's one egg. Goodness, my camera loves this girl. Let me see. This is fun. Okay, there's an egg, and I guess that's the chicken that lays the egg, and all this gold, that's what he took. He ran. Maybe somebody that knows cameras better than I do can leave me a comment to help me fix my camera so that it doesn't keep running crazy. Anyhow, we're almost at the end of the book. Jack climbed the beanstalk a second time, and again he was helped by the giant's wife. This time he took the hen that laid the golden eggs, and he escaped safely. On the third trip up the beanstalk, he picked up the harp to run away with it when the harp called out, "Master! Master!" and awakened the sleeping giant. "So you're the rascal who stole my bag of gold and my valuable hen," shouted the giant, and he began to chase Jack back down the beanstalk. Goodness, could you imagine getting chased by a giant while you're holding a harp and having to climb down a beanstalk? Okay. Jack ran as fast as he could possibly go, clutching that golden harp. As he was halfway down the beanstalk, Jack saw the giant getting closer and closer. As soon as he reached the ground, Jack called to his mother to bring the axe. With one strong stroke, Jack cut down the beanstalk, and the giant came crashing to the ground and died. From that day on, Jack and his mother lived comfortably and happily ever after. Well, that's a little morbid. I often wondered what happened to the wife. I guess if there's no more beanstalk, then she just gets to stay up in the castle? Maybe not a bad deal. And I wonder how they buried a giant. I think I was kind of a precocious kid. I asked those questions back then too. I've still really never gotten a good answer. Okay, so this was the tiny one, right? This was the one like I had when I was little, but there's another one. One more. It looks a little different. It's a little bigger. Let me see if I can get it in the picture. Yeah, it's much bigger. This is called a puppet storybook. So it's a little bit different than my tiny 3D books. And the puppets are different. So yeah, a different company altogether. But I guess this was about the time, for those of you that are old enough, when they started coming out with the shows like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, or The Year Without a Santa Claus, or Santa Claus is Coming to Town, or what were some of the other claymation? Those little shows that actually had the puppets that move and walk. Those shows by Rankin Bass were coming out, and they were very popular. So I think that's why the books were popular also. It was just kind of a really popular way of distributing children's entertainment at the time. So anyhow, that might explain why we had so much of this in just that little short period of time. Ultimately, it was horribly expensive, as it turns out, to create these. All the hours that it took to create the puppets and create the backgrounds, and all the hours it took to pose and take the pictures and all of those things. Extremely cost prohibitive. And let's face it, creating cartoons was probably just cheaper. Not better, though, at least not to me. Okay, so we won't go through the whole story. I did want you to see some of the pictures because I think they're pretty and different than some of the ones that we just saw. Goodness, it's a big book. Like, for instance, the Beanstalk is monstrous, huge in comparison. And you also get to see a lot more of Jack's house, like his little table and their pitiful little house, and just some little baskets and poor little shabby robe. It gives you more of the picture, and even the sad look on her face. It's just more detail to help the children understand why they had come to such desperate times. And this is a cute cow too. I don't know that I like it as well as that first cow. First cow's really cute, but this one is too. And this little guy with the beans, he looks a little more like a crafty beggar than the one in the first book. And you can clearly see these magic beans. Watch me mess my camera up again. Let me look. Let's see. Can you see them? Oh my, that's too much. Anyhow, yes, big handfuls. Because I often wondered, how many beans did he get for the cow? Nobody ever really said. Was it 7 with 2 handfuls? I always saw a bag and thought, well, maybe he got a whole bag. I don't know. Regardless, I don't think his mother ever thought it was a good deal. Okay, and let's get the camera to behave again. And this is Jack's first trip up the Beanstalk. And this is what he first sees. He sees this castle basically floating out here on the clouds. Pretty amazing. Not quite sure how he gets there to there, but anyhow, it's very impressive all the way around. And the giant is somewhat more frightening in this picture. And in this book, I don't think that they identify this old woman as his wife. I'll have to read further, but just the detail's amazing to me. All the stonework, even the little stains on his clothes, just to let you know he's kind of an oafish giant. And look at this big, what do they call that? With the big spikes on a mace. Is that what it's called? Go out and, I don't know, hit cows with it. I don't know what he would do with it. It looks terrible, whatever it is. And I liked this too because you get to see the gold harp and the golden eggs on the pillow and the little chicken. And another memory about golden eggs. Another thing that I bet people maybe that are watching this that are not, maybe not my age, maybe a little younger, you may not remember this, but it used to be that you could go, when it was time for you to go get new shoes, You would go to a shoe store, and if they carried red goose shoes, once you got your shoes, there was a little machine with a goose on top, and when you pressed a button, the goose would spin, and down would drop a golden egg, and it would have a prize inside. And so that's what I always thought about when I saw the gold eggs. And there was some little, I can't remember the ditty, it was something like, have the fun of having feet as red goose shoes. Something like that. Anyway, so all these things were happening at the same time when I was little, so I had somehow equated all of them together in some way. I wasn't sure how the giant tied into getting new shoes, but the gold egg somewhere apparently seemed to be the common thread. Oh, here he is with that mace again. He's chasing Jack, and this time Jack's got the hen and the harp. He's carrying them both and taking on that beanstalk. So this one's a little different too. So I was right. Yeah, the lady in this book was not his wife. Maybe she was just some, I don't know, some poor hapless old lady that had unfortunately gone into his service at his giant castle. Now in here I can't remember. Oh yes, oh here too, he fell lifeless to the ground, so oh yeah, the giant dies in this one too. Sometimes these things have to happen, I suppose. But in the end, you can see how much happier his mother and he are, and even the hen looks happy, and the beautiful harp has its place in the house, and they haven't quite managed to get her a clean apron yet, but I'm sure it's probably on the way. And that is the end of Jack and the Beanstalk. This company, this was a little bit bigger company. You've probably heard of them, Crosset and Dunlap. They're a bigger publisher, and they're also tied in with a filmmaker company back then called Filmways. So they had, I guess, a lot more money to spend, and you can see all of the books that they came out with, and I did have most of these. My very favorite one being this one. And if I can find it, I'll do another little film about that. So if you stuck with me this long, I can't thank you enough for visiting with me and sharing my adoration for these books. I never have found anything else about them on YouTube, and not very much on the internet, so in a tiny way, I hope that this helps preserve them. Even if children don't get to actually ever hold the book, at least they can see the book, and that makes me very happy to think about. So until next time, I wish you a good afternoon, and thanks so much.